Rainier Avenue Radio.
PrEP is a daily pill that can significantly reduce your chances of getting HIV, and typically it takes a trip to a physician to get it. Now you can visit select pharmacies, get tested on the spot, and walk away with your first month of PrEP. It's easier than ever to protect yourself from HIV, and with all the coverage options, you can get it at a very low cost. To find your nearest participating pharmacy, go to doh.wa.gov/PrEP now. That's doh.wa.gov/PrEP. Do it now. This is a message from the Washington State Department of Health and Public Health, Seattle and King County. Join Rainier Avenue Radio from 5 to midnight for Sunday evening sound sessions. Jazz from the Cabinets from Big Poppy.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Sergio LaCour's Love Lines.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell her who we talking to.
Sage Prince and Just My Opinion.
This is Sage, and that's just about going to do it for the first half of Just My Opinion.
K-Fox Nightbeat with Nasty Ness Rodriguez.
The beat of the Fox. K-Fox Nightbeat, Nasty Ness.
You know what? You're going to listen from 5 to midnight. Just turn it on and don't stop. DJ Alibaba. The Underground Surround Sound Star Time with Paul
Thanks
Pearson.
for tuning in. My name is Paul Pearson.
Sunday
And
evening
this is
sound
Star
sessions on Rainier Avenue Radio. Trust me, you'll be listening the entire time from 5 to midnight. Sunday evening, your sound session on Rainier Avenue Radio.
COVID-19 hurt my income, my health, and my family. We were about to lose our home when we heard we might be eligible for homeowner assistance funds from the government. We called 1-877-894-HOME, and a housing counselor stepped in, talked to our lender, and saved our home. Federal funding details at washingtonhalf.org. That's washingtonhaf.org.
You know you can't get enough of Rainier Avenue Radio. .world. You're listening to HeartBeat Radio. I'm your host, Cindi Bright. HeartBeat Radio is a conversation aimed to take the pulse of corporate America. Opportunities for people of color, we're getting lost in the shuffle of change. I'm that provocateur of change. The hearts of corporate America are addressed. Access and opportunities will be accelerated for all people. Through HeartBeat Radio, you will gain a deeper understanding of what is necessary for change. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to HeartBeat Radio and Podcast. I am your host, Cindi Bright. I'm glad you can join us tonight. We have a good show for you and a campaign we really want all of you to pay attention to. I'll explain more about it before Claudia comes on. She is Claudia Kauffman. She is running in the 47th district, which is the Kent area. It's an important race. She's going to join us here in just a little bit. But I just want to set the stage that I want to make sure that you're all paying attention to her race and why we're hosting her. Let me just say, Monday was Indigenous People Day here. And so we're fortunate she is an Indigenous woman to highlight her and her campaign. She's a former legislator back on the ballot. I'm excited to be able to host her this evening. Let me bring Joy on with me this evening, co-hosting with me this evening. Good evening, Joy. I think you're on mute. I can't hear you. Let's see if we can get her. It shows you're on mute on the screen, so we can't hear you. Let's see if the producer can get you.
I got it.
There you are.
Sorry about that. I had headphones on all day, and I think it was still tuned to my headphones. Hello, good evening. Glad to be here with you again, Cindi.
Yeah, looking forward to having Claudia on here in just a few minutes. It's interesting that, this is Indigenous. We had Indigenous People Day on Monday. There's a lot going on nationally, again, with this whole reckoning on race. Race and politics is a big deal. and women who are stepping up and stepping into office, or let me rephrase it, the right women that are stepping up and going into office. I don't know if you caught the news story about the elected official in Los Angeles City Council. Have you followed that?
Yes, saw that today. She resigned, but I was looking for what she had said. What occurred. I was like, what occurred to make her say something racist? And are you not a woman of color? So.
Well, it's interesting. The reason why I brought it up is for that point, because I think there's a conversation to be had around anti-Blackness. And I think that a lot of people don't recognize or understand the plight of Black women and the things we talk about every week on the show, but our plight and what Black women face. Even
is that who she said something racist to?
Yeah. Okay. I've seen it happen. I actually experienced it earlier this year in a consulting assignment I did, where people automatically assume that brown and Black people are having each other's backs. That's not always the case, nor is it the case that Black people are working within our own communities with each other. So, we have a lot of work to do when it comes to putting people in positions of power, because people in positions of power can make or break communities, as you know, and we just don't have the right people, enough right people in these positions. And so, and we both know as former candidates for office, to unseat somebody who holds a seat already is not easy to do. Claudia's race is interesting,
to say the least.
To say the least. I'm just going to say to people who are listening, just think Herschel Walker for a few minutes before we get to bringing her on, because it's important that we distinguish in her campaign, particularly, that the people who are running against her are likely are MAGA funded. And so MAGA is throwing a lot of money behind people that look like us, people with darker skin, to try to unseat and take power away from us. So that's a really important. And Kent, last year when Dawn Bennett ran for the mayor of Kent?
Correct.
Yeah, watching Kent's lack of voter turnout, like their numbers were really, really dismal. I remember looking at that. So,
and having a deputy mayor or a chief of police who was using anti-Semitic and racist language and undertones in his behavior was not helping the issue either. So I know they've been dealing with that in Kent as well. So there's some work to do there.
Yes.
And I feel like Mona Doss she really put an effort forward to make sure that all voices were heard in that community, not just the wealthy, not just the folks in power, but sharing that power and sharing that space for her community. And so Dawn was trying to step into that as well, to give voice to those folks there in that community. So you're right. It's we got some work to do there.
And I think it's also noteworthy of mentioning, and we'll be covering it.
You did invite them on.
I did. I did invite. I don't claim this show to be all about politics. It's not all about politics. We focus the show on advancing the lives of brown and Black people. And so politics is one piece of the equation, and we tend to bring on progressive people who are actually trying to advance racial equity. That has not totally been the Republican Party, so they've not had a vested interest. But because this particular race, it's a Black man running in that race, I invited him. I actually interviewed him. So before, because I was trying to discern what was up, I invited him onto the show. He had originally accepted. This was before the primary, and then his campaign manager said, we're just too left on this show. And I'm like, well, what is too left? You mean because we're asking for the same thing that the right has? That's considered too left? or because we're asking people to speak to the actual community that they claim that they want to serve and represent.
Right.
So that's too left to ask them to come on and talk to us. Again, another dangerous proposition for, putting people that look like us, pitching them to run for office, and then MAGA throws their money behind. And then, look, we have problems in the legislature too. Let's just not, I don't dance around topics, as you know, and I go right to the heart of the matter. We have problems because we're losing even the people that we're fighting to help get into seats of power are not lasting in office. Senator Doss is leaving. Representative Harris, Kirsten Tarley Harris in the 37th, not rerunning. Representative Johnson, black male, in the 30th, not rerunning. Controversy coming out of the legislature. I sent you some information today. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. The infighting that's going on in the party, the bullying, the behaviors of people in the caucus. I mean, we have some significant stuff going on. And so how do we, as we're trying to help get, BIPOC people elected, I mean, we're certainly not trying to help them get elected to go in and get abused. We are trying to get the right people in positions of power to help move our communities forward. And so, yeah. Did you get a chance to look at the?
I did not. I'm in the middle of an election season.
Yeah, I know.
Not that I'm running, but helping, supporting other folks who are running for office, and making sure that I am there for those candidates of color, for those women, for those first-time candidates who are running with an environmental platform, an environmental justice platform, and just making sure that they have the support they need. So I know I did not get a chance. Would you like to elaborate, or is that for a whole nother show? Is that a whole nother show? Uh-oh.
It's interesting. I'll just say, one of the things I really try hard to do is to be respectful to people. I don't want to shame people. It's never been my intention to try to do that. And so, I mean, it's all public information. So if people want to know what's going on in the legislature, they can get it through public information requests. It's not hard to find. I think a lot of people don't realize that all of this information is public, but it's certainly alarming. I would just say that's a word I would use. It's alarming and concerning, and hearing what people are saying, their closed lips, politicians are not at liberty, I guess, to, talk about what's going on in their own house. Any business keeps their stuff in house. They happen to be a public entity, so we can see what's going on in the house. And so it's just interesting stuff. And so it'll be fascinating. It's noteworthy to say that Kirsten Talley Harris's seat that she is vacating in the 37th district. So that's right in Rainier Avenue Radio community. There are two candidates competing for that seat, Amijah Smith and Chapalo Street. There is a candidate forum that Rainier Avenue Radio is going to host on the 27th at 6 p.m. So we have two. They've both been on HeartBeat.
That's right.
Past before. So I think they're both quality candidates. It'll be fascinating to see who makes it through the general election. So yeah, it's.
I was with Amijah this past Friday. I heard her speak at the One America event at the Cultural Center. And first of all, I just adore her. And absolutely feel like Chapalo is a great candidate as well. So it's kind of tough because you've got two great candidates. They just have different approaches to the solutions for the issues. And not to say that one is wrong and one is right, just different.
Yeah, I drew that same conclusion too when they were on the show here.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Eileen, it's no secret, I'm a Black woman. I'm trying to help other Black women. So, I lean that way. I mean, I have nothing against him, and he would certainly.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I'm just, we're just trying to, our plight is so tough. And, I just think my male listeners may not appreciate this comment, but, men have a lot of opportunities for power, maybe not necessarily Black men per se, but I'm just trying to make sure our sisters get in. So I'm just trying to make sure we give them a voice and, try to help get money in their pockets. I mean, this is a money game, as you know. I haven't looked at the PDC reports. Have you looked at them in that campaign to see how that's going? Yeah, it should be.
My staff have, my colleagues do, but I don't. That's just one place. Somebody says, well, how much did they get in the, I didn't even look at the PDC when I was running. So it's like, that's the last place I'm going to look.
Those are pretty indicative when you look at, I mean, they're not an absolute, but you can tend to look at numbers and see who's likely to get into the seat for our.
But money doesn't matter. Sometimes money doesn't matter. I have more money than my opponent.
That's true. That's true. She also ran against a Republican.
Right.
So when you ran, the party is going to help get money in your, in your campaign. They make sure that money comes your way. Imijah and Chapalo are both Democrats, and so the likelihood is that they're not getting a lot of backing, directly from. So
and I will say, isn't that like the best thing to have is two great Democratic candidates who care deeply for their community and want to do the right thing. Again, it's just different approaches to getting to those solutions for those issues. But I always think it'd be great if every community had folks step up like that. And you had to choose between, the two. And I'm with you. We tend to lean towards those Black and brown women because we were once them running for office, and we know how tough it is. But I loved her comment to me Friday night. She said, I haven't experienced what I thought I would. I think that's how she said it. But she's like, there's so many people that are just putting just fellowship and love and commitment into her campaign, whether it's hours, money, saying encouraging and empowering words to her. She is loving campaigning. And that's what I want to hear from the women who have come after us, who are stepping into that space to run for office, is that is the experience they're having, not, and that it's hard. Yes. And that I'm tired. Yes. But that she just can feel that people are supportive of her and encouraging her to keep going. And so, I'm
just going to say this, Joy, because I do. We all know every woman can outwork a man. There's just, so let's just be clear about what women can do and produce. And Black women, particularly, we know how hard Black women work. And so I think that gives, just from the perspective of, who we think, if I'm betting on somebody who will get in the legislature and be less inclined to play politics and more inclined to step into the gritty part of work. And so that tends to be us.
Yes.
So that's my
we're also not quick to back down, and we're not quick to be quiet, especially when we're told to be quiet. That's like the least likely time we're going to be quiet is when somebody tries to tell us to be quiet. And so I'm sorry, but I feel like, if I'm reading between the lines, I was very shocked for those three folks to say, I'm not coming back. I'm done. Term
and more so because
they're
that's
people of color.
Well, it's our life always that we are subject to abuse. So from my perspective, it had to be pretty egregious, like more so than because we're so used to dealing with it that you kind of know how to navigate these folks because we live in these spaces and we work in these spaces where these folks are around. But for how hard it is to get elected, how hard it is to raise money to get your campaign, how hard it is to work 90 and 100 hours a week and to stand for one term, because literally when you get elected, you have less than
When you're
1
off.
year to breathe before
Yeah.
you have to start your
Run
next
again.
campaign to
Yeah.
start to run again. And it's a lot of work. And so,
And even during that 1 year kind of break, sort of kind of 9-month break, you're raising money for the next time you run. You're talking to people. You're going to events. People are you're still telling them, I'm going to run again. Don't forget me. And they're giving you money. So you're raising money until that window comes where you can't raise money because you're in session. It's
I'm just really curious about what's really happening, particularly after I read that report today about the things that are going on there, because it brings to light, or it brings the question. It's a lot. It's like one report is like 14 pages. The internal document in it is a lot. It's a lot to read. But clearly, it's a reflection of leadership from my perspective when you have that kind of egregious behavior going on. And it's going to be fascinating come January to see what happens with, I think, like some of the seats. Will we continue to have the same Speaker of the House? She's the person accountable, I think. I mean, I don't know the infrastructure that well, but I think for the legislators, why did things get to the point that they have? Why are, when brown and Black people are raising issues, why is it that they're never heard? Why does it take so much abuse or things to happen before somebody acts on it? Like it's classic what happens in our communities, but it is disappointing, I think, to, know that we're fighting tooth and nail to help get people elected. And then when people are elected and there are staff in there to support them, we all know staff positions are held a lot by brown and Black people. And so we can't abuse the people. We shouldn't be abusing anybody in how you talk to folks. Let's just break that down, how you talk to people. Just because you have a stripe on your hat, it's my Navy days, you're a supervisor or you're in a position of power, all of a sudden you think it's okay to talk to people in tones of voices that are diminishing. Yeah. So it's just going to be fascinating. We really have to have some.
I did not see that. I said, I'll have to look at what you sent me. I did not see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. But we really, again, so when you look at the type of leaders, the type of people that we need to have in elected office, I mean, not only are they people that need to have grit, fire, and passion around, progressive policies to change things, we also have to have people who are able to navigate, toxic environments. And that's not an easy thing for any of us because it's so triggering to have to be around that 24/7.
Right. I am encouraged though by the candidates that we do have. I'm encouraged by the Amijah Smiths, the Claudia Kauffmans, some of the Black and brown women who are running for re-election. Representative Jamila Taylor, Representative April Berg. I'm encouraged that those women are still in there fighting the fight and doing the good work. That they're doing it on the inside. We talked about this as I started coming on with you on the HeartBeat Radio with you. We were like, we're glad we didn't get elected because now we can talk shit.
You have this conversation we're having tonight. Right? They're not going to talk about it.
We're not handcuffed to not be able to say, hey, what's going on?
But we not only just as the media, but our constituents, the listeners, like we're carrying the voice of people forward. We bring them on to ask the questions. We highlight their campaigns, but we also ask them questions to help, the listeners, their constituents are watching the show. And so it's people that decide who the electeds are. And we're the ones we're paying their salaries. And so the expectation is we're paying taxes and we're getting out and voting for you. Then we expect you. We don't work for you. You work for us.
For us. Yeah.
You work for us. So,
how does that translate when you're talking policies? Is that good policy for us? I'm always going to go back to the police reform bills. Thank you, Representative Jesse Johnson. I was at an event and I heard Representative Lubbock, who's now running for a Senate seat, Senator Monka Dinkra, and I believe it's Senator Jamie Peterson, talk about who was at the table, because I asked the question, who was at the table when those bills and those policies were being developed? And all three of them absolutely said law enforcement was at the table. But in my community, I get Facebook posts about how the law enforcement can't do their job because of a policy that the legislature has enacted. And I'm thinking to myself, you were at the table. Why can't you do your job? And so therein lies that divide of,
well, I noticed
you had a chance to voice your concern while you were at the table.
I noticed that several of the candidates, including Claudia Kauffman tonight, I looked at the issues that they are running on, and public safety is one of her issues. So I saw Kim Schreier's ads are talking about public safety. So it is fascinating, because I think the distinction of, I don't think anybody, I mean, this is my interpretation. I don't think defund the police was about doing away with public safety. It was about
who said that? No one said that.
No
You
one
didn't
said
say it
that.
when you ran. I didn't say it when I ran. I've not heard any other folks say it.
What?
We
Defund the
want is
police?
better policing. We want better policing. Oh, and stop killing our brown and black people.
That's the issue. And so the defunding was around, nobody's ever said we don't believe we need public safety.
That's right.
We just need the murders to stop, and we need to have resources, which are both police officers and money, reallocated.
Mental health. Yep.
We need the right people holding the guns, not the racist people that are out there and
Right.
who are, I don't know what the percentage is of crooked cops, but I ain't trusting none of them. And so, they have work to do in the public safety community to rebuild trust.
That's right.
And I've listened to, have you read Chief Carmen Best's book? I have it.
I haven't, but it's in my Audible library. I picked it up. I have it in my Audible library.
I'll be curious.
Maybe I'll listen to it when I fly home to California. I'll listen to it on the plane.
My perception is I thought she did a phenomenal job, given what how her hands were tied. I know she focused on hiring and bringing in, the right kind of police officers. She also has a police union to deal with, and the long-standing police officers that are there that she can't. I mean, I've worked in labor environments, and your hands do get tied with what you can do. I mean, there is I forgot the term. It's like a progressive discipline policy that you have to go through. I mean, and so that's not an easy feat that she had. I'm not making excuses, because I'm tired of watching people getting killed in the streets, and I'm tired of watching no justice done to the people who are doing it. I saw that again today. There was another non-guilty finding. I was reading attorney Ben Crump. I follow him a lot. I have to take deep breaths, because God bless these brothers who are out here as lawyers fighting for families and trying to do the right things and help, because it's so much. It's so heavy and so much. But anyhow,
Speaking of labor, do we want to give a shout out to our labor ladies? Rita Carter and April Sims, now the president and secretary treasurer
in January. They take the seat January 5th, I believe.
I am first in the country.
Great.
2 Black women running a labor union, and I am here for all of it. And I'm so excited. And so I appreciate both of them and the work that they've done and put in. If anybody's paid their dues, I'm gonna say, yep, they've paid their dues. And
agree.
And so I'm like, yay. Super excited for both of them. And we said labor, so that's why I thought of that. But going back to, wanting to make sure that we are always thinking about the folks who are elected, and if they're making policies for the people, We know that when brown and Black women, and when women in general are elected, statistically, we know that the lives of the people in their communities and in their state as a whole change for the better. That is
also, let me also call out before we go to commercial and see if we have Claudia joining us here in a couple minutes. But what I will say also is that we really have to pay attention. And I'm going to say this from a seasoned, because I'm trying not to call myself older, but a seasoned former executive would say that when you get into these seats, so April and Sharika, we are not viewed as leaders. Black women are not seen as leaders. And when we get into positions of power, the phrase that was shared with me, and I actually shared this with April, and I said to her, you know, this phrase was said to me, the higher on the flagpole you go, the more your ass shows. And when that's happening, the other women, the non-women of color, are going to come clawing to try to tear their power away from them. This is what we talked about a little bit last week about America. So that's the next piece of work that has to be done, is how do we help support them in their leadership positions? What is it we need to do as other Black women in the community? How do we make sure that because they're going to face it. We all know it. It is a 100% guaranteed gig that putting Black women in positions of power are going to ignite the other women who feel entitled to have those positions of power. And that's how that's going to run down. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We've got Claudia in the waiting room waiting on us. So let's do that. And we'll bring her in right after the commercials.
Half that up in sacks. I favor Black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's Black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's Black. Yo.
I'm Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not deep frying a turducken in a closed garage, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Are you a small business owner in Seattle who was impacted by COVID-19? The Seattle Office of Economic Development is investing $8 million to connect small businesses to operating capital. The Small Business Capital Access Program will lower the cost of Washington State Small Business Flex Fund loans by paying down 25% of the loan principal. Eligible small businesses can borrow up to $150,000 with a 4% interest rate to cover expenses like payroll, rent, utilities, and supplies.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm Granville Emerson along with my partner, Ronald Pepe Bean. And we host the show Little Line Sports right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where we talk about football, basketball, local sports, national sports, Seahawks, UW, Seattle U Red Hawks, Garfield Bulldogs, all that and more right here on Little Line Sports on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Mga kaibigan, ito po si Kuya Bert Kawili.
And this is Niall Salvador from Australia.
And I'm Norb Kawili, also known as Norbcam.
Gusto niyo po ang latest news and events from the Philippines at yung local Filipino community? Phil Radio po.
We play Filipino music and interview guests from all around the world.
And I'll keep you updated on the latest Seahawks and sports news.
Kaya always tune in. Phil Radio every Tuesday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
And in YouTube and Facebook. Salamat po.
If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no co-pays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
Rainier
Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
That up in Saks, our favorite black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.
Welcome back to HeartBeat Radio and Podcast. I am your host, Cindi Bright, with Joy Stanford tonight. Before we introduce in our esteemed candidate who's running for the 47th, I'm going to restate some of the things that I had said earlier in the show. This is an important race in the 47th district, which is the Kent area. Claudia Kauffman is running to fill the vacated seat by Senator Mona Doss. Why this race is so important, and I will also let Claudia speak to this, but I want to state a couple things. In this race, there is her opponent is a Republican opponent. He is a Black man that is being funded by MAGA folks to get him elected. Now, I've met with him briefly before the primaries and have invited him onto the show, and his campaign manager has declined to have him on, claiming that we are too left because we're advocating for people who run for these seats to actually come speak to their constituents. And so I don't feel that I'm too left, but the point is this. None of the seats that we have open right now can be taken for granted. The funding that is going behind some of these other folks to try to take power away from the people is something we must all pay attention to. And in the Kent area, there wasn't a strong voter turnout last year. And so we've got to mobilize the 47th district. We're pushing the show into that to make sure that we help Claudia get some votes. Let's bring Joy back in, and let's welcome our candidate on Indigenous People Week. We're going to welcome Claudia Kauffman. Let's bring her in.
Yay.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to HeartBeat.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're happy to have you, and we're happy to showcase your campaign so that you can talk to our listeners and viewers about your run. I know you have a history. I know you've been an elected official. There's a lot you're running on. Let's just give you the floor and talk to the constituents about your campaign.
Wonderful. So I'm Claudia Kauffman, and I'm running for the state Senate here in the 47th Legislative District. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm a member of the Nez Perce tribe from Idaho. I was born in Idaho, but I grew up in Seattle. My parents moved to Seattle when I was like less than a year old. And first we lived in High Point, and then we moved to Beacon Hill. And I'm the youngest of 7 children. And I can honestly say we were, low income, working class family. And, we've always been involved in community organizing and serving community because when I was like 7 years old, my mom would take me to food banks and clothing banks to volunteer and to work and to serve our community. And I was raised with those basic values that 1, you take care of your children. 2, you have respect for your elders. 3, you always honor your veterans. And 4, you always serve your community. And it's those values that I was raised upon, and those tenets that make me continue to serve my community. I've been, my father was a World War II veteran. He served our country valiantly in World War II. He told me some of the stories, because he didn't really talk about it before, but at the end of his life, he was telling me more about it. And it's just absolutely amazing. And so, growing up in that environment, that you always have room for children, because our home, we were 7 kids in a 3-bedroom house. But there was always a neighbor or a cousin or someone down the street needed a place to stay. And our house was always known for, you need a place to stay for tonight, go to the Kauffman house. And so when I grew up, I took that to heart, and I became a foster parent before I had my own children. And opened my house up to teenage girls. And, a lot of people think foster care is like, taking in a baby or, a toddler. But I was like, foster, you have to get those teenage girls and get them and center them and place them. And that's what I did. And I took in, 10 teenage girls. And it was absolutely amazing. I still have contact with them today. But, that's the kind of the grounding that I had in growing up in Beacon Hill. But, currently I live in the city of Kent. I've been here for 21 years. My children attended public schools. I was the member of the PTA. I went to the meetings. I baked the cookies. You do those things, to be involved. And one of my children is Down syndrome. So, I became a fierce advocate in the education system in developmental disabilities. And as a resident, as a homeowner, involved in my community, and steeped in my desire to continue to serve, I'm running once again.
And you served previously. You were a Washington State Senator from 2007 to 11. Is that right?
2007, 2008, 2009, and 2010.
Yes. And so what has driven you to want to rerun for public office again?
Well, I have to say that, service has always been, something that's been driving me. Service is critical to me. I've always had a desire to serve and continuing in that role. I loved the campaign. I loved serving. There's an opportunity right here in the 47th with an open seat. So I thought this is a perfect opportunity, and I have my desire, and I'm I'm involved. I'm a member of this community for a long time. And so I jumped into this race to continue that service. And I think it's a great opportunity to go back. It doesn't happen very often for an elected official to come back and be in that seat again.
How did the tribe react, you coming back to serve again? How did the tribal community react to that?
Oh, it's very exciting. It's been so inspiring to a lot of people to see, the commitment, the action to go forward. You can't be one and done. You have to continue to go and serve. And they've been very supportive. The tribes throughout Washington State have supported my campaign, and so many people have offered to volunteer and to be part of the campaign.
And your platform, the things that you talk about on your platform are public safety. You've already mentioned children's issues, housing issues, education. Would you like to expand on your views about any of those categories and why you've chosen those topics as your platform to run?
Yes, and it's more than just it's really the current issue. When I'm doorbelling, I hear from people at their porch. It is like public safety is very important to feel safe in our own communities, and we all deserve that. We all deserve to feel safe. And there's also a discussion around the recent laws that have been passed.
Aren't there quite a bit of issues, Claudia, with policing in the Kent area? Wasn't there? There's something going on there. Was it the city council person or something that was? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, and so within the city of Kent, we've had a long and storied history here in regards to the police use of force, and recently there was the assistant police chief who had the Nazi insignia upon his door, and that went on because when you have that environment where you feel like you can do this, that's setting the tone of what is acceptable. And now Kent is paying $1.5 million for him to leave the police force. And so for me, it is like, you need to set the tone. And, the laws that have been passed, I think, are decades overdue. And you know, all of these videos of all these police interactions is really systemic. It is not, it's just not one or two bad apples. You know, these are things that we need to change overall.
Mm-hmm. And the mayor of Kent, Dana Rolfe, is that her name? There, she's pretty right when it comes to policies there in the Kent area. And so I think what you're trying to bring forward is a more balanced view about people in the community, and your advocacy for, when you talk about things like education and children. I did see the pictures of your family. You know, people who live, you know, I just call it people with lived experience who come in and are able to bring a more, is the word centered approach to how you solve problems for people, rather than the, it just appears to me, I mean, I don't live in the Kent area, but it appears to be pretty, you know, slanted right and problematic for that area, which is hugely diverse.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And
Yes,
you have
definitely.
yeah, it is, right? Yeah. And you have some very, very noteworthy endorsements for your campaign. Do you want to talk about a lot of the endorsements that you have?
Well,
I mean, I printed them all up looking at them today. So I don't think I saw an elected official whose name is not on your website, but I'll let you talk about your endorsements and their backing of you.
yeah, well, and it's been exciting. And this comes from, you know, the knowledge of Claudia Kauffman and what she brings. And I think that's truly reflective of the endorsements that you see. You know, like congressional folks like Derek Kilmer, Marilyn Strickland, Pramila Jayapal. But we also have, you know, a mixture of state senators and state representatives that really show and reflect, you know, the diversity of the support behind Claudia Kauffman. It's not one special interest. It is truly a diverse group of people who are supporting me, including, you know, the teachers and the nurses and the
National Women's Political Caucus, Pro-Choice Washington. These are important for people to see and know. You've got all of the Democrats, the 47th, the King County Democrats, like you are heavily endorsed for this. So this is congratulations on pulling that much endorsement in for your campaign. It's actually a statement about you and a statement about, I'll just call it the crisis that this country is in, to have the right women leaders in place. Joy and I were talking in the first half about, it's not just about getting women elected, it's about getting the right women elected, the right women who will go in and fight and help change and put progressive policies in place to help serve our communities. And so we're just thrilled that you're a candidate and that you are very grassroots and humbled, and you've served before, so you certainly know your way around Olympia.
Yeah, and I think that part of that really, it demonstrates, you know, because I spent 21 years working in government relations for the Muckleshoot Indian tribe, working on the local, on the county and the state and the federal level, working in that area, being having those years of experience on a professional level, being a former state senator, but also on a personal level, and my dedication to civic involvement and getting and working on nonprofit organizations. I think I bring a wealth of experience that is far above my competition, and much more diverse and much more inclusive and much more lived experience, not only as a woman, but as a person of color. And so, you know, I bring that all, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be in this.
Did you hear my comments before we brought you on about your opponent?
No.
Oh, okay. I was commenting to our constituents, and we're going to show your website here in just a minute so we can help you with fundraising or donations for people to see. I had commented that, you know, I follow the PDC reports and I see the money that's getting thrown behind him. And so, you know, my personal view on this is, watching the MAGAs come to try to take power. And I caution our audience, because we know and have spoken about it is a Black man running as your opponent. He's running on a Republican ticket. It's scary to us as Black women, because we're watching how the MAGAs are parading Black men in the media for public office. And so far, the track record between Ye and Herschel and the people that they have on tickets is not going to serve our communities. And so I alerted the community to that's who your opponent is. We're showing your website right now on how to support you, but I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but that was just my slant, because I wanted people to pay attention, that not to fall into a slippery slope of not understanding who the candidates actually are.
Right. And because I'm running for state senate, because, people really deserve someone who will put money back into their pockets, rather than, putting in money back into the big developers. My opponent has been supported by big development because he has a record of allowing tax breaks for big developers on city-owned property.
He's a city council person, right?
Yes, he's a current city council person.
16 years.
He actually was on the Kent School Board when I was in the state senate, when there was, the lawsuits against Kent School District for handcuffing children, and how they handcuffed children of color more than anyone else. And so, that's the kind of leadership that, he provides. And he tried to sell a city park illegally and got caught, and then had to pay the developers close to $1 million to buy them off of that, because they had already invested in it. And, that's truly who is backing him. And also, the folks who are against LGBTQ communities, and those who are against a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions. That's who's backing him. And to me, I'm all about grassroots. I'm all about working. I bring my experience, and I have the knowledge and the understanding of the entire system.
Claudia, can we talk just a second about your Native Action Network and how you are encouraging and empowering and recruiting other Indigenous women to run for office?
Yes, it's so exciting. Native Action Network is a nonprofit organization that Irish Friday and I co-founded back in 2001. And some of the core things were about leadership development, but also about civic involvement. And throughout the years, we have grown and developed our programming and our services. And we expanded to provide, this advocacy boot camp, so that you can be empowered as a Native woman to stand up for your community, to come on to all of these Washington State boards and commissions. And if you want to run for office, here are some key tools that you can take with you and add to your chest, that you have the knowledge, you have the understanding, and build that confidence and learn about public speaking and how to run for campaigns, and that you are good enough. A lot of folks think they don't have the confidence, but you do. I think you're all that in a bag of chips.
That's my saying. I say that all the time. And Cindi and I both, ran, and so we didn't have a Native Action Network or an Emerge at the time.
Right.
Wasn't even, they were just coming on board in 2018 when we were running. And I decided to take it.
We're actually pioneers. Like we have to give ourselves credit for that. Joy and I are two
pioneers.
We're pioneers. Like we were to the first
two of the five. Two of the five.
I remember Melanie, you, me. Who were the other two?
Deborah Intamin and a lady that was running under a Republican ticket, I think. Maybe a Democratic ticket.
Four of us. Four real.
Okay, four of us. But that's
we should celebrate that. We should really celebrate that. The women who get involved, who make that commitment to run. I mean, you are putting yourself out there, and you're really giving it your all. And, that should really be celebrated.
Well, we're happy to help you now because I went through it once. Joy ran twice. And so, yeah, we have a little bit of a taste in our mouth right now about it. So we're happy to support you. And candidates, we are trying to highlight BIPOC women who are running, I'll just say, on a progressive ticket. I don't even know why that's how it's characterized, but we're just women who are actually going to go try to get the same thing that they have.
There you go.
Right. Just the same things. We're not asking for anything more. We want equity and we want equality and earning power and healthcare and all the things that our communities, people that look like us, don't get to be able to touch. So we're happy to support the candidates that do this. We've got just a couple minutes left. If you'd like to, there's some final words you want to say before we close out the show. We're happy to let you talk to the constituents this way.
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here. I really appreciate it. And I love your support and your inspiration. And it's true, you have laid the groundwork for so many people. Pardon me. And I wanted to talk about, we do have some canvassing, doorbelling events. It's on my Facebook page, Vote Claudia Kauffman. Feel free to check out. We're doorbelling every single weekend until Election Day, and feel free to visit my website. I do have ongoing events. I have an event on October 19th at the Kent Event Center. I hope you can come. It's going to be a great event, and I think that's all.
And vote Claudia Kauffman for Senator 47th LD.
Yes.
Thank you, Claudia, for coming on with us tonight. We appreciate that. We are pushing this show into the 47th Legislative District Facebook groups and making sure we get you in front of your voters. So that's part of the, right? That's part of the deal here that we're coming on with us.
We are proud of you. We are so proud of you. Keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep knocking those doors to the bitter end.
Yes. I'm doing it. I was putting up yard signs all over the place today, and
good.
Every single encounter, I work and just be honest and humble about who I am and what I'm doing. And so, thank you. You guys inspired me.
We appreciate you, Claudia. Thank you for signing on.
Thank you.
All right. Joy, I'm so happy that we are able to do this as HeartBeat.
Yes.
This is the highlight of the work that we do, to be able to showcase candidates and talk about a lot of this stuff. We do need the strong women in office. And so God bless. We are. Yes, from our heart. I didn't know that about Boyce, about who he backed. I just don't follow him much. I just looked at who was putting money in his pocket. So anyhow, thank you, Claudia, for joining. To our listeners who joined us tonight, thank you for joining and listening in. Please share this video. Please push this and share this with your Facebook groups and make sure we get, this is a race we cannot ignore and we cannot leave to chance with the kind of money that is being thrown behind her opponents. I just wanted to make sure we do that. Any final thoughts, Joy, before we sign off this evening?
Oh, voting is going to really make a difference this year. So vote. Row your vote. Row your vote. I was there Saturday at the sign waving that went on across the country on Saturday. And so it's vitally important. This is our way of making a statement, I think, and really standing up to what happened with Roe versus Wade and standing up for our communities and people who don't always get a voice at the table or a seat at the table. So
I think all of the midterms this year, it's going to be, that evening is going to be a fascinating evening to watch and see what is happening across the country. I'm thrilled that our president is making some progress now on some of the issues for communities of color.
Yeah.
They're in the nick of time right before this election, but we certainly need all hands on deck. And
Yes, we do.
yeah, just going to be fascinating to watch. So
It
a lot of
is. It
across
is.
the country, the Stacey Abrams, Ralph Warnock, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of folks that we got to make sure. And I'm just going to give a shout out. My cousin is Lynn Gladney. She is running for the House of Representatives in the state of Georgia also. So my family is another family member stepping into politics. So rooting her on. Listen, good time flies. We enjoyed this conversation tonight. So thank you all for our listeners who joined us tonight. Remember, we got to get out the vote, get out the vote, get out the vote. All right. Have a good evening, everybody. And we shall see you all next week. Have a good evening, everybody.
That up in Saks, I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.